hello and welcome. I'm DeRionne Pollard. I'm the proud president of Montgomery College. I'm absolutely delighted to welcome you to another session of our Facebook Live, where we're actually continuing our discussion about the workforce training with some of the key leaders and thought leaders in our community. So I'm here on Facebook, produced by our phenomenal team at MCTV. And what's very important about this is that it's an opportunity for you to hear from folks, but also to engage with us. And you'll be able to post questions, we'll respond to them. But I have one of my favorite people in Montgomery County here to talk with me.
Mutual.
Ms. Gigi Godwin, who is the CEO of our Montgomery County Chamber of Commerce. A little secret though, she was also on the board of trustees that hired me and brought me to Montgomery College, and for that I am always privileged to know. But she's also a Midwest girl as well, so we got a little sass, a little swag that we bring.
Going on there,
so we love that. And what we know about our chamber is that they have been at the forefront of having pivotal conversations in our community about business attraction, business climate, and certainly talent acquisition. So this idea of having her engage with me in this Facebook Live, we are very excited about this and going to have a great conversation, because we know that they are invested about keeping business in Montgomery County and certainly creating the talent that's going to allow new businesses to come here as well. So as a part of this, we are in our state-of-the-art science building in the Rockville campus, one of the buildings that you helped us acquire some years ago. And what's very important about this building, this is where we're preparing the next generation of engineers, scientists, and this particular room, our engineering project room, contains a project I have to draw your attention to. These particular little doodads back here, I shouldn't call them that, but I'm an English teacher. These are robots, and these are robots that are actually produced and created by our students. They took these robots down to a NASA swarmathon, and did they win or did they come very high? What level? They won the virtual, and they also placed very high in this and beat out some institutions you'd be very surprised in what they beat. So as a result of that, these particular devices are critical in helping students understand about prototyping, programming, all the things that they need to know as they step into either a transfer track to a four-year institution or certainly into world of work. So this speaks to technology, and that takes me to my first question, Gigi. When we think about technology, what we hear a lot about is the changing nature of work and how technology is impacting that. What are you hearing, and what do your business leaders tell you about this?
Well, before I even answer that question, I have to say, first of all, I love this series. It is fantastic. I've been watching it and learning about my colleagues. And thank you for doing that. Thank you, Montgomery College. Thank you, Dr. Pollard. And I'm so proud of you every day. So let's just start there. I have to say, I'm excited as the Chamber CEO to be able to continue to advocate for Montgomery College. And this is something I did long before I came to the Chamber. I continue to do so. And of course, it's critical to our economic success, the success of our employers. What is more important than talent? And so the question you ask is so interesting. You know, how is technology impacting the workplace? And of course, it's impacting not only the what happens in the workplace, it's affecting where it happens. And even I think it's impacting the why of the workplace, which I think is an interesting issue. Well, with the advent of the ability for people to communicate all over the world in a second, means that you have an incredible social change possible. So not only is technology changing what we do and how we do it, I think it's impacting who's able to do it, who is able to affect change, because technology is a tool and it kind of levels the playing field for entry. And of course, you and I are all about access to opportunity. That's right. You and I have talked about that for years. And so, of course, that's important to the Chamber. That's critical to your mission. It's critical to ours. You accelerate the success of your students. We accelerate the success of our businesses. That's what we both do every day. And so, yes, technology, huge. It's eliminating some jobs. It's creating new ones. But I think there's this whole other piece about what it makes possible, and it even changes the why for some people.
I love that idea about it giving access to people to be thinking about how they do work. I think that's very important, and thinking about how talent development, because a part of what we have to do is help our students be prepared to understand what the new technologies are, how to access them, how to navigate them, but also more importantly being prepared to think about new technologies as they come out, because it's not just what's right here in front of you.
Right.
It's like developing that schema about how you're going to be prepared for technologies of the future.
So I was thinking about that on the way over today, because this is an important question, preparing talent. And so you're in the business of producing an incredible, this huge talent pool. Lots of different kinds of talent. I mean, we have hospitality, we have high tech, we have companies that are building the blockchain technology that is going to transform how the federal government does work. We have 19 federal agencies here. That's kind of a big deal.
Big deal.
Big deal. And they're our people. They're the companies that you and I both know. We sit on the board with them, right? Yep. So we have a lot of interaction there. So we know that's happening. But as you just said, and I went to this little college in Iowa, Grinnell College in Grinnell, Iowa, a long time ago.
Shout out to Iowa.
Shout out to Iowa. And shout out to the Midwest that you mentioned earlier, because we're both from the Chicago area. But what I learned was that it isn't only the information. Yes, you learn great information, you learn great skills. But the most important thing about education, you and I have talked about this many times, I think we should say it here today, is that you have to teach people how to learn. Because we're going to be, right, in the business of lifelong learning, not only next gen, but I would say every gen.
Yes.
It's all gen, and it's gen from here, to the end of your life. We are always going to be learning, and we need our workforce to be in a place, in a system, and have access to opportunity, access to the kind of training, the information, the what is always going to change. But as we invest in the who's, well, right?
I love that.
Okay, investing in the who's. That's what we're both doing.
Well, and this actually takes me a really good question, because at the college we spend a lot of time listening, as you do, to employers, large employers, multinationals, as well as locally based companies that are thinking very deeply about talent. And they're thinking about their business delivery. And based on some of our recent conversations, even with AWS, we've been able to really develop curriculum in that to help respond, both short-term certificates. When we look at our engineering program, it's really putting people to prepare to go into many of those federal agencies that you talk about, as well as many STEM companies across the country. So we're not only preparing workforce, but we're helping to help grow jobs to the extent we can, and really have people be prepared to do the type of work here. So what do you hear from employers about the job growth and the skills that they see needed to really help skill our economy and prepare for the work that they're going to be doing?
Well, I love an expression you use, which is the whole power skills thing. Oh my, they call it soft skills, some people do, but I like the expression power skills. I love that, because that's where the power is about the ability to transform oneself and to be able to communicate. So technology is fabulous, but if you can't explain to somebody, if you can't make it meaningful, if you can't take the pumpkin and make it pumpkin pie, explain to somebody what is the good of this, what is the use of it, that's nice, but now that I have it, what have I got? So at every age, in all kinds of work, whether it's defense contracting or biotechnology, in fact, the more technical, the more important. That the ability to, work together in teams and all that, but all of that, if you drill down, are communication skills. Yes, and we have to make sure that as we're training our young people and our every age people, because remember, it's all gen, it's everybody, that they have an opportunity to also develop those skills. And even how people communicate today is changing. Thank you, technology, for better or for worse in some cases. But we have to make sure that people connect, because that's the human drive to connect, doesn't go away. I don't care how many of those cute little robot things there are. We're always going to need to connect.
Your point is such a powerful one, too, because you talked about communication skills, team building skills, the ability to understand and value difference, the ability to be comfortable with ambiguity.
Yes.
These are all things that you can have. The technical skills, you can certainly have the deep subject area competence, but those power skills really help you get a job and keep a job, right?
Right.
They'll hire you in the technical skills, but if you can't do the rest, oftentimes you're going to be bye.
Yeah, I think another thing that's very interesting is that I'm excited to see that in addition to college prep, there's a big discussion about career prep. But I think we need both, and I think everybody needs access to both. And I will tell you something that we have to remember here in Montgomery County in particular, and in the Washington region. Our federal contracting community, our federal agencies are still requiring, for some of the most basic entry jobs, a 4-year degree. Well, I'm just saying, and so I've talked to some of our board members and other members about, what are you seeing, what are you requiring, what is your customer asking for? It's not just what they want, it's what their customer is asking for. And so we have to be always responsive to what's going on in the marketplace, and those requirements still exist. So we have to be mindful that we never can take our eye off the ball of producing not only 4-year and advanced degrees, given the kind of companies that are here, given the kind of employers, as well as having career. I mean, of course we're going to need a balance, but we can never take our eye off that ball, because those jobs underwrite much of what goes on. That's the tax base, and that makes our quality of life possible. So we have to always keep that in mind as we're balancing the scales here, and it's tough.
So one of the questions that came in asked us, how do you teach non-technical people how to learn high-tech skills? So those people, that are fearful with the idea of, they're doing good to use their telephone, let alone this idea of being able to say, okay, now I need to do a little programming, or I need to understand coding. Or I had a friend call me not too long ago who's making a career change. She said, how do I apply for a job? Because she said, back in the day, you do a letter and a cover letter, and she said, but I find out now I have to go on, all these different sites and upload. She said, I don't know how to do all of this. And I thought, how scary that
It
has
is
to
very
be.
scary.
So how do you, what advice might you tell us and others about how to teach people how to learn these types of skills?
Oh, gosh, you need a friend. I'm sorry. It is. I mean, there's no magic about this. I mean, where you're going to need, there are a lot of different solutions. I mean, I say the number one solution is I would contact my community college immediately. It's an emergency. I have a communication emergency. I mean, it's a life skill emergency. And frankly, it's not only the person. I do think a big chunk of it is the people that are changing later in life. That maybe didn't, or they had a team that did it for them, or whatever. But also people that come from other places. We have people. I'm first generation in this country, as you know, on my mom's side. And so I'm mindful that not everybody grew up with the same access to technology, the same training, the same opportunities. And so we need our community colleges. That is the first stop, on the road. And of course, there are workforce development partners in many communities. Oftentimes, workforce is at a community college, or it's side by side, sitting there as a partner. So I think a lot of people would go that route. I think you have to ask people, and you get into a network. And there's really never going to be a substitute for getting to know people, because even after you do all the uploading and everything else, still at the end of the day, it's going to be references. It's going to be, who do you know? Can somebody speak to your good qualities? And this gives me an opportunity to encourage any mom or dad that took a step out of their career, like I did, that you can come right back in and be sucked right back in a nanosecond, because if you've got the wherewithal and the energy and the determination, you got to have a lot of, stick-to-itiveness, but just do it. Don't be afraid. In fact, we have great talent out there that hasn't come back into the workforce, and we need you. We need you. And I think that if you're not sure about some skill or another, where do you, who are you going to call? I would hope it'd be Montgomery College.
Well, you said something earlier I want to talk about is partnerships, because you talked about networks and partnerships. And one of the things that we've realized at the college is that we get to expand our capacity by partnering with people, whether we are partnering with the Chamber on things like your Green Business Institute.
I love that partnership.
Whether we're partnering with MCPS and USG and Apple as it relates to Montgomery Can Code. All of these things are creating access opportunities. It's informing the community. And I personally think that partnerships is the new commodity. Now, I'm also getting to a point where I want to stop calling them partnerships, because everybody's a partner with everybody. But what does it actually mean? What are the outcomes? So when you have productive partnerships that lead to
strategic partners that really get you someplace.
Talk to me a little bit about how you approach partnerships, because the Chamber have deep and rich coalitions and alliances they build based on your work and others before you. Talk to me a little bit about how you approach partnerships and why you think that's so important.
Well, it's just like at work or in any human endeavor, you need trust to have speed of play, right? So a way to do that is as you're networking and you work with people, you know who you can work with, who can you communicate with, who shares your values, who wants to set aside, whatever differences you might have, so that you can get to this place, this mutual goal. We grew up, many of us, I would say everybody in this room, grew up with the notion that, if you've had good opportunity, you owe it to give something back, right? It's powerful stuff, and it's real stuff. To leave it better than you found it. And so when you find that people are already inclined in that direction, it's not hard to form a meaningful communication and partnership that moves some change, shaping the marketplace, shaping opportunities, shaping the marketplace of ideas, shaping the marketplace of opportunities, right? That's what we're about. And that can be everything from moving, old regulations out of the way, so a brewery started by the first women that ever started a brewery, good friends of ours, right?
Who is also a Montgomery College alum.
Montgomery College alum, and I think a very good example, but that's an example of where together you train that talent, right?
Yep.
We move the obstacles out of the way so they could do something, make history here, right? So back to partnerships is that you do have to work in common purpose. Are we trying to get to the same place? And that comes from it starts with a conversation. Do you see the world? Do you see an opportunity? And can you work with somebody? And then if you trust each other, speed of play, you get it together. We reached out to you to do the Green Business Certification Program because why? Well, we would need talent that would be trained so that they could actually execute the program. We don't do that. Yep. We had an idea about helping our businesses green their procurement processes because we knew the federal government was going to go that way. We knew that 10 years ago. We wanted our companies to be armed to win. We wanted them to be more competitive and capable of doing all sorts of good things. And we worked with the Department of Environmental Protection. Great partnership because we all wanted to get to the same place.
Well, one of the things that relates to what you just said, by equity and inclusion, we want to talk about this idea that everyone has access to the playing field, that we're being very deliberate about this. So this question speaks to this. As you mentioned, the future work will be dependent on technology. In turn, we need to consider issues of digital equity and digital inclusion. We love to engage with businesses more to understand how we might work together to access equity and inclusion issues. How might businesses be willing to support this plan? Do you have advice to us about how we can say, okay, we want to make sure that some people and no one is being left behind, because we see that happening.
Yes.
What do your businesses tell you, and what advice might you offer?
The successful companies, just like successful federal agencies or any organization, when you set a goal, and when you say, we're going to hit this target, we're going to hit this number, and we're going to hold ourselves accountable to it, you'll make change happen. That's how, I mean, if you don't have a measurable goal and you don't set it in place, I've got to say that a lot of our companies and of every size set goals like that for themselves. And they did it both because it's the right thing to do, and it's also the smart thing to do, right? You're leaving a lot of talent behind in a world where there isn't enough of it, where you're struggling to get the right folks. So, and the right folks means the right talent, and that comes in a whole lot of different packages. I think that the business community in Montgomery County is incredibly progressive in that area, and I mean that meaning that they were very fast to get there because it was the right thing to do, and it advances the interests of being successful in their businesses. In the tech world, we could slice and dice and say, well, gee, we might want to see more women or more this or more that someplace, especially in technology. Oh, by the way, I think that's still a hill to climb, but it's being climbed, right? And the companies are putting more women on boards of directors, and that's changing. It's changing, and also not only are they getting diversity right that way, but there's diversity of talent. So, for example, it's now more common on a board of directors to have somebody on a board who says, gee, what kind of political and government environment are you in? Because that's a risk factor. There was a great McKinsey report about this more than a decade ago, and any company's success, their bottom line success, will be impacted 10%, positively or negatively, simply by regulations and laws that change, either wildly in your favor or in the opposite direction. So, and I would actually say that that's an argument for keeping your eye on the ball, engaging with an organization like us, because we're looking out for these issues because people are too busy running their companies. And we're also looking to see, how's the world changing? What are our partners doing? We work very closely with all the federal agencies. What are they doing? Why are they doing it? How do we help our companies be sure that they can provide those solutions? Because we want those jobs. We want to win those contracts here. We want those jobs here, right? Because that strengthens our community and it makes our community vibrant. We want to be there, stay there, grow there, right?
So speaking of vibrant communities for our businesses, talk to me a little bit about the chamber itself, the number of businesses you represent, but then also what's on your agenda this year, because that's an important thing right now. We're moving into a very aggressive legislative cycle. We are nearing a set of elections, and all of these things are, but you, at the end of the day, you're trying to make a better business environment for our businesses so they can hopefully contribute to the tax base of the county where all of us continue to thrive. What are some of the things about the chamber that we need to know?
Okay, lots of things. So for starters, we're the only county chamber in the United States of America that advocates at the federal level. And we got bipartisan legislation passed. It was called the Small Business Runway Extension Act. It was to help our small businesses that are federal contractors. Oh, by the way, Montgomery County is #1 for health IT small businesses that sell to the federal government.
Wow.
There are, what, 3,000 some counties in the United States? We are #1 in small businesses that do that.
Wow.
And we are #2 for just small businesses in general. All right, so a certain other county would be over the river.
We don't talk about
We don't talk
those.
about that.
Yeah.
But anyway, but the point is that's the business we're in here, and these are great companies. So we're mindful that if they're the companies that are winning contracts and growing and building amazing technologies, as well as facilities management, construction, a whole slew of other things, we have to make sure that our small businesses that are growing are allowed to be successful. So that legislation spoke to that. But we help businesses that we're never going to meet all over the country, and I feel perfectly wonderful about that, right? Because it's a big ecosystem, and our companies are doing business all over the country and all over the world. So that's one thing. We're going to continue to build on that success, and we're being contacted by the House and Senate business committees. I'm very proud to say that our own Senator Ben Cardin worked very closely with a certain Republican senator, and it was a bipartisan effort, and it was quite a friendly effort. So there are some good things once in a blue moon that do happen. But our companies benefit and our community benefits for that. So that's one thing. A really important topic for us has always been to fight for construction dollars. It's so important.
Yes,
it
it
matters. It shows what your values are.
Steel in the ground is green in the pocket.
Because that's where we grew up.
Yep.
We know exactly what that means. And so we are advocating very strongly for CIP dollars, that's construction dollars, capital improvement plan dollars for Montgomery College. But this is always important to us. We have a big year ahead on that. We have some real opportunities. We need it for the school system, you know, for K through 12 too, or pre-K as well. So construction is important because it drives jobs, it improves the quality of what we're delivering. After all, you can't really teach chemistry in a gymnasium, and you cannot do basketball in the chem lab. So it matters what your spaces are, right?
And exactly, this building is a living testament to that, which is why our building at our Tacoma Park Silver Spring campus, we're trying to put another state-of-the-art science building, is so essential because we need every student who comes to Montgomery College to have equitable spaces to learn in. You can't create the next cure for science or think about how to do that if you're too busy worrying about tape that's going to come off the floor.
I know.
Or whatever the case may be.
You can't have that.
You can't have that.
Another piece of legislation, you know, we often say at the chamber that if you can't breathe the air, drink the water, or walk the streets, you can't do business, and you can't raise your family.
That's right.
None of that can be possible. So there's some legislation. There's a bill, I think it's been introduced, but it's about expanding the program that we built together, the Green Business Certification, and we're encouraging the state to take a look at it and help businesses do this voluntarily all over the state of Maryland. Why not?
Well, and can you all think, somebody asked a question about internships and how important it is for our students. I'm wondering, is there any way to figure out how we can get more internships for some of our programs where students are in the process of really, I think, wanting to get into industry, feel it, touch it, taste it, but they need those entry points. How could we engage business in this?
Well, first of all, I think a lot of our companies, I mean, this is the great thing about being with the Montgomery County Chamber of Commerce, is the board took a pledge years ago, and I don't know if you remember this, you know, some years ago, but they know how important it is, and many of our companies, and you and I know who they are. I mean, we've got our construction companies, a lot of companies are accounting firms, banks. I mean, we have so many, Marriott, I mean, we have so many, you know, there's so many, I don't dare count, you know, say too many names, I'd be here all night. And it'd be wonderful to say all their names, but we have a lot of companies. I'm glad to say that my people, my businesses, my executives, my CEOs, they're there. They get it. They're already there. They've got very robust programs, and I think if anything, they're just happy to know what else is out there and what more can they do. I think you know, they're already tuned into apprenticeships, internships. I mean, there's subtle differences between those. I mean, they're there, and it's good for everybody. You know, it's just as important for a student to find out what they don't want to do as what they do want to do.
Exactly.
Isn't that right?
It's a part of the learning process.
I know
that. We know that. So it's 2020.
Yes.
I've been taking the opportunity in these conversations. I've got a couple minutes left to ask some personal questions, because I think as a thought leader, as a community member, we oftentimes hear that little place across the river people oftentimes compare us to. That's them. Let them deal with that. But I think about living and growing and raising a family in Montgomery County. The reason I choose to live here and why I've been here for 10 years, and you've raised a family in Montgomery County. You have been a leader in the education space and the business space. You are an advocate. What's the best part about living in Montgomery County? Why do you choose to stay here?
Well, I think it's that whole list you just said.
Yeah.
You know, I like the whole variety. You know, sometimes people say that just as Maryland is like a microcosm of the whole United States, I think Montgomery County is like a microcosm of Maryland. You know, it's because we've got it all going on here. Urban, rural, the whole thing. I mean, in an hour's drive in any direction. Sometimes it's only a few minutes walk in any direction. You can just have so many different experiences. Great place to raise a family. I think that's important. I think that's a big plus for attracting businesses, because you know, at the end of the day, a business is human beings. It's an executive that's making a decision about where they're going to invest, and they're not just investing a company's investments, they're investing their own. They're choosing to buy a home. They're choosing to put their children in the schools here. It's personal. So we have to think that way. You know, we've got the Veteran Institute for Procurement. You're a huge fan of that. We've been doing it for 10 years, and we're training the veteran-owned small businesses in federal contracting. But the other thing I'm interested in doing as we look ahead is getting those companies to open, you know, they're from all over the country. More than 400 of them are Maryland companies, but the other 1,000, my goodness, I want to recruit every one of them. I want every one of them to fall in love with Montgomery College. I want every one of them to bring their people here, grow, win contracts, grow some more, have their people coming to you for more training and more experience, and to fall in love with this community the way we did.
Well, you know, Montgomery College was recently ranked on the top 10 in terms of veteran-friendly institutions across the country. So that says a lot about this. So as you talk about veterans coming here, bringing their businesses, bringing their families, they need to pursue education. Please, we see that as an option. Here's my closing question almost. I think I got 3 minutes left. What's the best piece of advice you received, and why? I know.
Well, it's a personal piece of advice, and my mother always said this to me, and she said, you know, when you meet somebody and they're having a tough day, understand that that person is carrying scars, pain, hurts, all kinds of things that you can't see. You don't know they're there. You don't know what their life experience is. And so if they're a little short with you, or they don't seem patient, they don't seem responsive, don't take it personally. It's not about you. Be understanding. Have the opposite reaction. And I'll tell you what, that advice, which brings tears to my eyes because my mother gave me that advice, but it has been one of many, many gems that she gave me, you know, over the years. But I would say that that's so important. It's helped me understand people better.
And it's about kindness. I think, you know, and empathy. And I think one of the beautiful things about living in Montgomery County is that we are a county that lives its values out loud. We see that in what we choose to invest our public resources in. We're a county that works deliberately to try to educate and make sure no one is left behind. We're a county that recognizes just because someone might need some help doesn't mean they're not worthy. So I think that this idea of knowing that when someone presents to you one way or the other, they may be having a bad day, they may be carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders, they may be wondering where their next meal is coming from. Just understand that was where they may be, and give them a pass sometimes. And I love that.
I do too. I love that you love that. I love that you love that. It's true.
She told me this advice one day, and I remembered it, and it speaks so much. So sometimes we can get caught up in a lot of things.
Be kind, be understanding, have a little patience with people.
That's it. And recognize that people have their own journeys they're going through from time to time. We've got to honor that process. So as our business leader, and here's my last question for you. And I think I got a minute, so I'm up to get 2020. Did you adopt any new resolutions for 2020?
Follow my mother's advice more closely.
Oh, God love you. See,
in all things, really. I mean, remind you, and be really gratefulness, which I'm already sort of wrapped in that direction, but I am more aware of it. I'm stopping a little bit. You know, that whole stop and smell the roses a little bit, you know, think, because if you don't give yourself a little bit of time to think, you really aren't at your best, and you're not really helping others to your best capability either. So that's probably
it. Well,
and spend more time with you.
Oh, I love that.
That's what I'm going to do.
I love that. Gratefulness is my new religion. I believe that. And this idea of every day writing down 3 things I'm grateful for can change the world.
I like it.
So I want to thank you for joining me and our series here about workforce and talking about economic development and how we can partner to do this type of work.
For sure.
One of my favorite people with the best smile around, and one of the most thoughtful. So thank you for being here. Thank you all for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Take care and be well.